there's a guy named Charlie Kirk. He's got like millions of followers. He founded something called the Turning Point USA. It's one of these. How would you describe Turning Point? How would I don't think it's a think tank because there's no thinking going on. It's just all ideology. So I guess it's technically a think tank, right? So it's a movement. They call themselves a movement, but it's an ideological movement that's right in alignment with this Project 2025, which I'm sure maybe he, helped to craft in so many ways. It's also radio, it's media, so he's got like this whole media platform of voices that they put out. And, it's grassroots efforts to, make America great again, which is part of their mission as well. But he's on the social media platforms, Charlie Kirk. And you probably shouldn't know him, but you probably should, because he's driving a lot of the ideology. He has 2.6 million followers on Twitter. That's a lot. That's a lot of people following him. So he put out a tweet. Then I'm going to read to you, and then I want to talk about it when we come back. And I see the people holding on. I'll get to you. He said, for years, progressives have chirped happily about the browning of America. He put that in quotes. Soon, much sooner than most people realize, America will be a so-called, quote unquote, minority majority country, which really means it will just be a no majority country. When that happens, will whites be extended all the same, quote, civil rights protections, privileges, and affirmative action advantages that Black and brown Americans receive now? I think we all know the answer. Suddenly, academics, he puts quotes around that, will have the epiphany that white minority is negatively impacting democracy. Instead, it will be very important that America respect the, quote, will of the majority without any restrictions imposed by the Constitutional Bill of Rights. Because ultimately, nothing the left did was guided by a desire for fairness. It's driven by animus. And we all know who the target of that animus is. America's kulak class of white. I don't know that word. I have to look it up. K, but there's a K in it. It's like KKK. I don't know. Class of white middle class American Christians. So he's saying that, when America browns, then the power structure is going to shift. And now white people are going to be under siege, and they will not have access to the affirmative action and all these set aside programs, as if these set aside programs were put there just to undermine white power. No, it was put there because of redlining, because of racism, because of slavery. Hello, sir. Do you not read? Well, that's not even the point. Charlie Kirk doesn't have to read. All he has to do is scare white people. And who is Charlie Kirk? Well, he's an American conservative radio talk show host and founder of Turning Point. He grew up in Chicago, a Chicago suburb, Arlington Heights, Illinois. His mom was a mental health counselor. His dad was an architect. So he comes from people who went to school and studied and learned. He was a Boy Scout, earned the rank of Eagle Scout, went to high school. And in his junior year, he volunteered for a successful U.S. Senate campaign, a Republican, Mark Kirk, who he's not related to. In his senior year, he created a campaign to revert a price increase for cookies at his school. So he became very active. He wrote an essay for Breitbart News as a teenager, alleging liberal bias in high school textbooks, which then led to an appearance on Fox Business, and then he was off to the races. He got co-opted by a man named Bill Montgomery, a retiree who was 50 years his senior, who was then the leader of the Tea Party. He was a Tea Party, not a leader of the Tea Party. He was a candidate backed by the Tea Party. While on a speaking engagement at Benedictine University's Youth Empowerment Day. So we were just talking about engaging in youth. Well, other people engage their youth big time, and then they indoctrinate them big time. And he encouraged Kirk to get involved in political activism full time. So he dropped out of college, and then he founded Turning Point USA, which is a grassroots organization to rival MoveOn.org. Organizations like MoveOn.org, which really are just bringing light. These, I put my petition on MoveOn.org to remove the flag, the Confederate flag, from the State House of South Carolina. That was MoveOn.org because my sister-in-law had sent me a petition on something else, and I just used them. They're not a grassroots organization pushing liberal views as much as it is that people who have views that want to, do something good in society, I believe, use the platform. So Turning Point doesn't even do that, but it called itself, an answer to organizations like MoveOn.org. And let's be clear, MoveOn.org is, I guess, considered a liberal organization simply because it wants the country to be better. All right, I'm just gonna put that out there. But he went on to become this person that has this huge following now, and his tweet again, which talks about what we call now replacement theory, the Jews will not replace us, is a rallying cry. It's also kind of a nod to the mission. The mission is to not be replaced. And anybody listening right now, who wants to be replaced? But in order to have that as an effective campaign, you have to first indoctrinate people into this notion that you are part of something that could be replaced, which is why, I've been really, having people on to talk about, the invention of whiteness, because as long as you can broaden that tent as wide as you want and bring in even people that speak Spanish that may have some melanin, it's like even some black folk can be brought in, grafted in, brought into the fold. You now have something that is virtually unbeatable, because what you are fighting against is a person's very identity. That's so hard. It's like some of you who have converted from Catholicism to Islam, or who have become atheists, after, being, indoctrinated into, say, the Baptist or the Methodist. That's a hard thing. That's a hard thing. And some of you have lost your family as a result of it, because you are literally walking away from the foundation of what makes you you, for many of us, right? So what is being asked is for people to walk away. So for Rachel to be on these airwaves talking about not being able to sleep at night because people in this country who don't look like her, who don't have the same proclivities or shared lifestyle, she knows what's going to happen to them. That says something about her as a human being. Because if you can care about people when it's not you, which should be the goal, right? If y'all are real followers of Buddhism or Christianity or anything, it's really about caring about the least of us. The Beatitudes and all of the ways in which quote unquote spirituality moves. It's about caring for the people who can't necessarily care for themselves, or caring for the people that don't have as much as you. There's a scripture, if somebody asks for your coat, you give them your tunic too. That is kind of a nod that I have enough to have a tunic to give to you. It's to whom much is given, much is required. I'm going to keep saying that, because I feel like what this country has fomented is, if I've been given, I need more. To whom much is given, give me more. Give me yours too. Give me all of it. It's not enough is what we are operating under, as opposed to what I operate under, which is abundance. I have enough. We are abundant. We have enough. We are everything, because collectively we are all of that. But Charlie Kirk and others, that Project 2025 is directly feeding into this thing, which is why I am very passionate about it, because as a Black woman in this country who cannot pass, literally, I can't necessarily feel comfortable driving in certain states right now. I don't feel comfortable driving to see my mama. I used to have a house in Florida. I used to go back and forth, up and down 95 for years with no problem. I got to get gas at some point. And I'm in South Carolina. I'm in Georgia. So I'm not going through Atlanta, except if I want to get something to eat. Maybe I'm going to wait in line 2 hours. But certain parts, rural Florida, no, it doesn't feel safe. And I'm an American citizen that pays taxes, and I've been here. My family brought here in the hulls of ships. I'm sure I don't know them, but I know 5 generations back I can trace. And I'm not even going to talk about, my ancestors built this country. It's not even about that. I'm a citizen of this country. There should be no place in this country that I feel unsafe going just because of the complexion of my skin. But this is the world that we currently live in, and it could get worse. And I'm not saying that to be hyperbolic, and I'm not saying that to scare anyone, but things happen. I mean, I was this many years old when Roe v. Wade, when a woman could get an abortion. And I'm not for abortion. Let me just say that. I've never had one, and I never would. But to tell somebody else what they should and should not do, that doesn't seem right. That doesn't seem right. My values and my way of living and my way of seeing the world should not necessarily be yours. And anybody that is willing to impose their way of thinking on somebody else just because is a dangerous person. And you shouldn't be okay with that. Now, we can agree, argue, fuss, and fight over a whole host of things. But I think as it relates to free will and people being able to be free, minus the freedom to kill other people, which is something that we don't seem to even want to stop. So there's a lot of things, a lot of hypocritical things happening. Like, I don't want people to freely be able to go out and shoot people. At the same time, I want people to be able to live their free lives. If you want to put on a wig and high heel shoe, that's your business. Whoever you sleep with, that's your business. It shouldn't impact me. If I'm not living my life that way, why is it such a bother? Well, it's my children your children are exposed to a lot of things in your household that are problematic. Fix that. 866-801-8255. So I read this tweet from Charlie Kirk, founder of Turning Point, where he talks about the progressives talking about the browning of America happening sooner. Well, it's going to happen sooner than you think. And then he poses the question, will these white folk now have civil rights? Will they be protected by affirmative action and have advantages that previously were afforded to Black and brown Americans? Because what he's also saying is they didn't deserve that there was nothing wrong with America that would force there to be an affirmative action, which has been overturned. So he's nodding to something that's already in motion. That affirmative action wasn't about Harvard or that school in North Carolina. It was about everything, which is why Fearless Fund got targeted, which is why diversity and inclusion all over in all of these companies going away, because that's racist now. The Supreme Court said so. All of you sitting in these positions that are supposed to be there to help bridge and build more diversity in companies, that's all going bye-bye. The programs that are set aside to build more leadership in companies that are Black and brown going bye-bye, because now the Supreme Court said that that's racist. Charlie Kirk is feeding that beast. He says, is that democracy? He says it's important that America respect the quote unquote will of the majority. So he's also telling the folk, if you're not the majority, these people are coming for you. This is what he says. These people. And what about us? White, middle-class American citizens, Christians. Oh, he put Christians in there, Christians, because that's the buzzword, right? And I look at a man that dropped out of school to become a full zealot in this ideology that is rooted in whiteness and preserving it. And I say, yeah, no, this is scary. And I remember sitting here when that report came out, when the census came out that year. And I'm going to read from the New York Times because there was a piece in there by a political scientist at the time. What was this? It says, and I'm going to tweet. I'm not going to tweet out. We're going to send it to Threads. I already dropped it in Nubia. It says in 2015, the Census Bureau published a report projecting that by 2044, the United States white majority would become merely a white plurality. Immigration and fertility trends would lead to America's ethnic and racial minorities outnumbering its white population. And there are already at least 5 states where that is the case. Since then, for a certain subset of Americans, each annual release by the Bureau, the Census Bureau, neutral, nonpartisan researchers who produce deliberately staged reports has become a sort of countdown to the white apocalypse. And there it is. There it is. Worse, we now talk about cross-racial fertility rates, Darwinistically, as if the census were monitoring a population of elephant seals in competition for a rookery. This is what it is, right? So if you make up a construct that invites people in and then kicks them out. So let me just say, folk who practice the Jewish faith, sometimes you're white, sometimes you're not. A lot of times in America, though, you identify as white. America hasn't always identified you as white. Ask your forefathers who got sent back to their deaths in Nazi Germany, who were sent back boatloads, sent back because they didn't want you in here. Read Oppenheimer and listen to how that group of people were treated and seen, to the point that Oppenheimer is like, I ain't even trying to identify as being Jewish. Bump that. Okay. Italians were never white until it was convenient for them to be white. There were signs about Italians not being let into restaurants. And those of you with Italian ancestry, please ask your grandparents, your great grandparents, ask for the stories, because you couldn't go into restaurants. Neither could my family. The same, on the same signs. There have been racism against Polish people in this country, all kinds of pejoratives. First, it was the Irish, who were the indentured servants, until they got too cozy with their indentured enslaved, who were enslaved for life as opposed to a 7-year sentence, same condition. And then they made them the patty rollers, the ones that police those bodies. Ooh, what a step up. So this country has been willfully weaving these narratives in and out, separating the human race into these categories of worthy versus unworthy. And this is the actual battle, because globally, they know the truth. It's not just in America, because guess what? Biology is what it is. We all came from Africa. Every single one of us have our roots there. You can take your 23andMe if you want to. We heard yesterday, you don't have to. You can actually go through census records and go to, city courthouses and find out your ancestry that way without giving up your DNA, because it's just a report since it's Tech Tuesday that 23andMe, there's been a data breach. Connecticut Attorney General presses 23andMe for data breach answers, because they're not talking about it. But there's been at least 1 million data profiles of people with Ashkenazi Jewish heritage and hundreds of thousands of individuals with Chinese ancestry on the black market right now. I don't know why those particular groups, but there's answers being sought. 23andMe revealed earlier this month, and it was quiet because I didn't hear this everywhere, that customer profile information shared through the company's DNA relatives feature has been accessed without authorization. There's a lot of 23andMe, a lot of people trying to get to the purity of race. The thing that Hitler was trying to do with the Third Reich, the thing that America was doing with the Jim Crow laws, which was, purity. We're going to not let the Chinese reproduce. Can't have that. And these black folk, yeah, they're great beasts of burdens, but we don't really want them here. Let's send them back to Africa. Oh, Liberia would be nice. Here we go. A whole ass country that people already lived in. Sound familiar? Let's send people to some place and then stick a flag there and say it's Monrovia. Ooh-wee. Weird, but so American. And so I'm looking at this and I'm saying this is the battleground right here. And it's not people, because what the goal should be is for people to see each other as humans. That's the race that we should be in, not black, white, or other. And I knew as soon as that affirmative action, first of all, that whole thing, that was the domino that needed to fall for them to be able to now have these discussions, because it's not defensible, because it's not rooted in history. We can't talk about redlining and racism because nobody wants to hear that. With the CRT now, no one will hear about it. The next generation will not have this information. History is going to be erased. Books are being banned because people are feeling bad about the history of this country. But this is where we have to have this battleground. And we have to start talking about the idiocy of separating people based on complexion and amount of melanin. It is stupid. It's biologically stupid. So of course, America and the rest of the world is going to brown up, because we all DNA. You took biology in high school. Dominant and recessive. So simple. It doesn't mean that you're less than a person if you don't have enough dominant genes. Doesn't mean that you're less of a human being. Doesn't mean that you're worse of a human being. No, it's just biology. Melanin is in your DNA somewhere. You could be as light and white and redheaded and blonde and blue-eyed as you want to. Keep reproducing. And you're not going to eliminate the gene because it's foundational. So even that notion of only having a master race of people who are blonde and blue with recessive genes, that's biologically silly. Y'all in the pet industry that be trying to have these purebred dogs, talk about their health problems. Talk about their life expectancy. Let's talk about it. We're not meant to be in these separate buckets. We're meant to be whole and complete, like human beings are supposed to be, all one. But they're using this, and it's effective, because all you need to do is tell somebody that they won't be here. They're being erased. They're being replaced. And then you look around and you see, like Florence said in the Jeffersons, how come everybody overcame and nobody told me? You see a black folk, everywhere you look. Black people seem to have money and things and that, except if you're a black person living in certain neighborhoods and certain communities that have been denied all of the opportunities. I just watched Dr. Caretha Mitchell, who was on yesterday, give a speech about being raised on, and I should have talked about this yesterday, but I didn't have the information of the words. And sometimes, the time that I put into planning for this show, which I put a lot of time in, there's like a drum beat that I have. I wish I had talked with her about this, but it wasn't in line with what we were talking about yesterday. But she talked about being raised on a dirt road, not expected to do anything with her life, with a whole ass PhD now and doing amazing things. But she is the exception. She's the rose that broke through the concrete. The vast majority of people that come from the community that she was raised in are not doctors, PhDs, professors. They are just the statistics that you would expect, because that's crafted too. So when you think about a domestic policy that was crafted under the Nixon administration to flood the black community with heroin, and then Reagan's domestic policy, which was to flood the black community with crack cocaine, which also funded an illegal war, and then criminalize it. This genocidal, and I have to use those words, right? Because how else do you explain the destruction of a community? It's not an inherent fault in our DNA that allows for there to be this rampant drug use and this incarceration. It is the flooding of the drugs, followed by then the criminalization of the health crisis that you created. That's now a health crisis with opioids, right? It's a health crisis. But imagine if opioids were scheduled the same as crack cocaine, and everybody who took opioids would go to jail at the same rate that people who took cocaine. This is the way we have to start to have these conversations. And if we don't have these conversations this way, then everything else is a lie. So let's tell the truth. And this is all leading up to voting, because this 2025 project 2025 is the same project of 1864. It's the same project of the lynching 1940s and 50s. It's the same project. It hasn't stopped. It just has a different name. So I get it. Single issue voters. Yeah. What's going on right now in the Gaza Strip? What's going on over there in Palestine? It's horrible to watch. And seeing Biden shake hands with Netanyahu is problematic for a lot of people, and I can't vote for a war criminal. That's what I'm hearing, right? Okay. But what if you're in that position and your whole entire community is in that same position that you right now say you can't vote for somebody because they are supporting and sending money, your tax dollars? It's a complicated thing, and then you end up in a circle jerk because it's not going to ever make any sense. But I will say this, render unto Caesar what is Caesar. This is not a moral, voting is not a moral prospect. It's not a religious prospect, which is why all of the folk quoting scripture and praising the Lord who are running for office, church and state, render unto Caesar what is Caesar. This is out of Jesus's mouth, those of you who believe that. So what are we doing here? You vote because you, first of all, want to make sure that people who openly hate you, they have a 1,000-page blueprint to eliminate you or re-enslave you through prison. And these are words, again, because it is slavery, what is happening in the prison system. You get up when they tell you, you eat what they serve you, you go to bed, you make furniture, you pick cotton if you're in Louisiana. You are enslaved. You have no rights. You can't vote in most states. You have no rights. So what is it if it's not slavery? And what is it if the 13th Amendment abolishing slavery had a but clause for incarceration? If then the people who are most incarcerated in this country look like the people who are most enslaved. So I'm just like, at some point, we gotta get out of our own way, get off of the damn YouTube, get out of the TikTok, and get out of Who are you surrounding yourself with? Is it just people that make you feel good? That make you feel like you're smart? Let me tell you, I seek after people that make me feel absolutely stupid most of the time because they know so much. Why? Because there's so much that you don't know. Don't you want to be around people that know more than you do? And I don't have the answers, which is why I fill this show with people who have answers. But we have to do that. We can't sit in our ignorance and feel good about it and pat ourselves on the back because we turned a phrase or two, or you said something, somebody said, good job. And then you go and listen endlessly to the people that say the same thing. We have to do better. And we have to start to plan and strategize. So, I'm going to do that. I've been doing that. I think I've been doing that. I'm going to do more. I'm going to do better. I have to do better. I have to take this up another notch. Because this is not just what's going on in America. This is a global fight.
Yeah. I run my fingers through her hair as she smiles and says that she loves me. Isn't it lovely when the one who loves things is the one?